welcome to the Karen Kenney Show. Hey, you guys, welcome to the Karen Kenney Show. I am wicked excited to be here today. And I'm just going to dive right in. I'm going to call this episode, Are you a thermometer or a thermostat? Are you a thermometer or a thermostat? Stay tuned. Stay tuned to find out because you're going to get a chance to discover if you're a thermometer kind of person or a thermostat kind of person. And I'm going to come at this concept. I'm going to use a couple of different ways to explain it. I'm going to look at it from a couple of different angles. So first, of course, I'm going to share a personal story because I always love to tell a little story. And then I'm also going to share a little quick excerpt from a sermon from one of the main members of my spiritual team, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. So, all right, there's this theory, right? There's this theory that says there are two kinds of people in the world, a thermometer kind of person and a thermostat. Now, as soon as I see something like this, of course, I get wicked curious. I really am not the kind of person that just loves to throw around theories and stuff like that and not give credit where they come from. Now, I have heard the thermometer, thermostat thing be credited from everybody from Simon Sinek to friggin' strength and conditioning coaches at U Lowell or something like that. But I actually tracked it back to Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., who talked about this concept in 1954. But then I got even more curious and I was like, well, is this his original thought or did he get it from somebody else? And it was fascinating because you know me, I love to give credit. So I found, and I'm holding this up. If you're not watching, I'll describe it. I'm holding up a wicked old photocopy of a newspaper. And this newspaper is called the BG News, like literally like the Bee Gees, like the band. It's called the BG News, spelled the same way. And this article comes from Wednesday, June 18th, 1947. And so this concept of the thermometer versus the thermostat goes all the way back to 1947. And it actually came from a pastor called Dr. Henry Hitt Crane. And he was a pastor not only in Detroit, but he was also in Massachusetts. And he graduated, I think he was in the School of Theology from my alma mater, Boston University. So I thought that was kind of cool. So I'm going to share like where he's coming from and where Dr. King was coming from in a moment. But first, let me just lay down some basics. Then I'm going to tell you a little story and how this applies to you and can be really helpful for you in what's going on, not only in your personal life, but in the world. Okay, so here's the thing. This theory that there are two kinds of people in the world. There are thermometers. Now, think about what a thermometer does. A thermometer tells you the temperature, okay? And then there's the thermostat. And the thermostat actually sets the temperature. And this is where I just want to jump in really quickly and tell you a little story. Now, remember, I'm going to come at this concept of thermostat and thermometer from a couple of different points of view. And hopefully one of these is going to really, hopefully I'm not wasting your time. But I found this really interesting and helpful. Okay, so I've been looking for a space to do some in-person yoga again. I had a space, I stopped using that space. And then I transitioned to just doing some online yoga classes. And then I'm like, I'm ready to get back in person with people. So I've been looking all over God's creation for a new space. So I've been meeting new people. I've met some realtors. I've met some people who already rent space in the building. I've met people who sublet from a building. And like, I've just been going around, like getting right up in people's business and finding out like, what's the deal, right? And what I have discovered is this really fascinating thing. There are certain people that you meet, and as soon as you come into their presence and you connect, right? Whether it's like literally just seeing their face, to their first hello, to then standing in a hallway with them or whatever. There are people who greet you in a really warm way. And then there are people who are really kind of like cold and standoffish and just not warm and welcoming at all. And it's been really fascinating over the past couple of weeks meeting a bunch of new people, like totally new people, like strangers, right? I've also reconnected with some people that I have known, but maybe we didn't know each other super well, right? Maybe we crossed paths in a certain community, a yoga community or whatever. But I had this one particular experience where I was looking at a space in a building and trying to determine if this room, this space was going to work for me. Now, the realtor kid, he was like a young kid. He's like 24 years old, just really sweet, just like tall, thin, gangly. He's a ginger, just started his real estate career. He's been at it for like a year. Uh, and he was like showing me these two spots in this building, and I was trying to determine if these things were going to work for me. Okay. The first day I'm there, right? As I'm coming into the building, I see this little dog sitting in the window, and I'm like so psyched because I'm like, as soon as I see a dog, I'm like, yes, this is great. It's going to be fun. And the dog was the dog of one of the owners of this particular business that rented also in this building. And they're basically like, hey, this is Jake from State Farm, right? So the dog's name is Jake. The little sign in the window, this is Jake from State Farm. He's wicked friendly. Come on in and say hi. And I'm like, oh my God. So I go in and I'm pointing at him before I'm even in the building. And the women who are in the office can see me and they're laughing because I'm going like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, like a dog, a dog. And so when I get inside the building, I say hi to the real estate guy and I said, hi, I don't mean to be rude. I'm Karen, but like I gotta pet this dog. And so he's like, oh yeah, yeah, go ahead. So I open their door. Jake comes out, the sweetest, cutest little guy. And we have a moment. And then the women in the office are wicked nice to me. They're smiling at me. They say hello. They're like telling me about their experience being in the building, like wicked nice, right? Okay, go down the hallway, check out the space, and then have a great time with this kid. Like he is so nice. He's curious. He's open. He's like trying to be so helpful, just really kind. I love this kid. Okay. Fast forward, I come back the next day because this time I've come back with my yoga mats because I want to lay them out and see if they'll fit in the space. Now this time, he's like, I get there before him. The insurance people and Jake are not there. So I'm just standing in the hallway by myself, like with my yoga mats leaning up against the wall because I don't want to go into the room, until he gets there. I'm trying to be respectful. Because my normal instinct is just like to, just open the door, whatever, and go in and start measuring. And while I'm standing there, this other person comes out of their unit. Now, there's only like, I think there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, there's like 6 or 7 spots in this building, and nobody else is in the building. So this woman comes out, she looks at me, looks down at my yoga mats in the hallway, looks back up at me, and her face is giving me like nothing, like no warmth, no hello. In fact, she's just kind of making a face at me. And so I recognize right away what's happening. I'm like, this is not a warm and fuzzy person. This is somebody who is blasting. So because we're talking about thermometers and thermostats, I'm going to make my point. So she is not blasting like warm and fuzzy towards me at all. And I imagine she's like, okay, she steps out into the hallway and here's a stranger like with yoga mats. So to try to like explain to her so she can like let down her guard and like not be so like weird towards me, I said, oh, hi, I'm Karen. I'm like waiting for so and so, and he's going to show me the room, and he's going to be here any minute. And she looks at me, doesn't say hello back. And I often talk about how there are people who smile with their mouths and not their eyes. And it was so interesting watching her brain and her face do this thing where, like, I think some part of her social conditioning was telling her that she should probably be nice to me and try to smile, but like her face could not hold on to the smile. So she started to like half smile and then she crunched up her face again and she looks at me and she goes, are you going to be doing yoga in here? And I was like, oh my God. So immediately, right, I feel like this reactive, all right, I feel this thermometer like in my body come up, which is Vicky with 2Ks from Lawrence, and Vicky's not having it, right? And so I immediately feel like the temperature start to go up. And I realize like, okay, well, I'm not going to be rude back to her. Like I have been doing this work long enough that I can most of the time, if not like most of the time, I can stop myself. I can feel myself reacting. And I'm like, "Oh, I don't want to react. I'm going to choose who I want to be. I want to be a thermometer. I want to set my own temperature. I want to set my own tone. I don't want to just react to her cold temperature by throwing it back at her, right? I'm like, I'm going to respond. And so I just said, still with a smile on my face, being really friendly, I said, "Oh, I don't know. I don't know what I'm going to do in here. I might do yoga. I might do some spiritual mentoring. I might do some Thai yoga massage. Like, I'm not sure yet." And this does not make it any better for her because you can just tell, like, I don't know what the deal is. I don't know what her problem is. I don't know if she's just liked having this unit next to her, like fucking empty forever or whatever. But she was not being kind. And so the temperature of that room was chilly, like chilly, 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 burr, like burr, burr, like put on my parka because it is freaking cold in here. I was like, oh, interesting. And so she starts to walk past me down the hall, still with this look on her face. And I said, "How do you like being here?" Now, I have to admit, that's me being a little fresh. Like, I can tell that she's like kind of not into it. And I'm just like going to now make her like respond to me. So I was being a little bit of a brat. And I just said, "So, how do you like being in the building? It seems like it's kind of empty, huh?" She's like, "Well, not really." And she says something to me about one of the rooms her husband rents it, whatever. And I was like, "Oh, okay." And I was like, "Well, do you like being here? How long have you been here?" And I could tell like it was killing her to have to talk to me because she was so not happy. I don't know what the deal is. I don't know this woman. I've never met her before. She has no idea who I am. But it was just like a really weird thing. And I thought to myself, I'm going to get to the point. And so, and then in contrast, the realtor kid comes around the corner and he's like, "Hey," and he was so sweet and so happy to see me. And he's like, "That was really weird." I was like, "Yeah, you think?" He's like, "I'm sorry." Like, no, it's not your fault. She's clearly just like, whatever. Maybe she's having a day, maybe she's having a mood or a moment. But here's my point. Um, we are responsible for the vibe, the energy, the setting, right? We are responsible for how we are setting our thermostat when we go into a situation, when we go into a room. So we can either be thermometers and be reactive to the people around us and what's happening and just kind of being passive and tossed about, or we can choose to kind of set the temp and set the tone. Now, me, I like to be a warm fuzzy towards people. I have had some really good teachers in my life, and some of my best teachers have been my dogs. And when I think about like Abby girl, when I think about Buckminster biscuits, buckets, who I call Bucky or buckets, when I think about Bunchy, right? When I think about all my animals, all my dogs, when you walk into a room, they are always so happy to see you. They get up, they make a big deal. I don't care if I went downstairs right now, Bunchy would like jump up and spin around and wag his tail and wiggle, wiggle, wiggle and make little noises. He's like so delighted that I'm back in his presence, that I have reappeared. And we could learn a lot from our dogs about how to welcome people and greet people. Now, I know some of you are probably listening to this and they're like, "I don't know, KK, my dog jumps on everybody," and like whatever. Yeah. Okay. Some animals are maybe a little too enthusiastic and maybe need a little training, a little support on how to regulate, like when somebody comes into the room or whatever. But I know, double amen hands if you know what I'm talking about. I said, I feel like I walk into the room and I'm like getting an Academy Award for just appearing, right? I could look like shit. I could have just rolled out of bed. I could have been like just coming in from like a hot, sweaty run. Like, you're just like, blah. And they don't care. They don't care how you look, how you smell, like what's going down. They don't know about, your struggles and all they know is like you're back and you are the light of their life and they are so happy to see you. And I thought to myself, what kind of a different world would we live in if the temperature that we set ourselves at was the temperature of love, was that warm and welcoming vibe, and that when you step into people's presence, that they can feel that welcoming, they can feel that inclusivity, they can feel that they belong there and that they are welcome there. You know what I mean? To create a space that at least offers, like, a sense of no harm and safety, right? And I will also say that some of the other people that I met, they were lovely to me. And it was so nice to like meet new people who were like open and curious and whatever. So that's just kind of like the little personal story. Now I want to turn to another slightly different way and deeper way of looking at this. So step number one is like, check yourself. Like, when you're walking into a room. So one of the things that I have tried to do for a really long time, and this is something that I learned from one of, my friend and my mentor, my spiritual godmother, Marianne Williamson, way back in the day, like in my early 20s, like she told me, if you're, I mean, obviously these are things that she said to other humans and in her books and stuff like that. But I'll never forget her, talking with me and saying like, who you're being when you enter into a room, like makes a difference, like how you're holding yourself and the energy that you're putting out there. And she would always say, like, if you're going to go into a space and for whatever it's for, whether you're leading a class or about to speak or having to have a difficult conversation with somebody, or maybe you're going in to like try and work out a business deal or a negotiation or a contract, like whatever the thing is, like the energy and the intention in which you go into that room, it makes a difference. And she would always say, like, just blast love, like send love. She would say it, send love in front of you. Send love out in front of you. And every person that you walk by and every person in that room, she's like, you don't have to say it out loud. Like, you don't have to like seem like a crazy person, right? You don't have to walk into the room and announce, I'm blasting you all with love. But this is a really powerful thing to do. And it's something I've been doing like since then. So before I go into like a yoga class or anything, I get on stage or I'm doing whatever, I always ask, that I have guidance basically, right? First, I blast love in all directions. And because I am not omnipotent, I don't know what the best outcome is for every single person involved. We, of course, have our hopes, our dreams, what we wish would happen. But I don't know what the best thing can be. So I would just go in and I say, hey, may I be of service? May this be helpful? May everybody here like feel the love that I am sending in their direction. And this can be a very powerful thing. That thermostat is really different than pulling your hands back, putting your dukes up, being cold, being like whatever. And like, I always thought it was fascinating too. Like Gandhi, he used to say like, he's like, when he would bump up against people who were trying to push back from him, like in negotiations and stuff, he's like, that's when he showed up as his best, because he would just meet their intolerance and their attitude and their hatred and their stuff. He would just meet it with love. He would just meet it with kindness. He would just meet it, and it was really disarming. So I always thought that was really fascinating. Okay, let's fast forward now to this whole thing with Dr. King and then with Dr. Henry Hitt Crane. So Dr. Crane, back in 1947, he was actually giving the commencement address for the class of, let's see, I don't know where they were, but it was a class of 1947 for a commencement address. I'm not sure what school it was, but this is what he said. I thought this was fascinating. First of all, the title of his address was literally Thermostats versus Thermometers, or Thermometers versus Thermostats. And he says this: a thermometer conforms completely to the environmental situation in which it finds itself, while the thermostat is an instrument with all the characteristics of the thermometer plus the element of control. And that right there is key. Stay like, just squirrel that away in your little library in your brain. So I got a little library in my head, and my little guys put the philo facts, like just boop, Dewey Decimal System, put it right in there. Okay. It has the element of control. And then he went on to say this. He says, thermometers are those who act as though their chief object in life is to do whatever is, quote unquote, being done. Their major passion is to be popular with the crowd. He said, the saviors of the world are the thermostats. And I think this is really, really powerful because the thermostats are the ones who basically say, I'm not going to conform. I'm going to decide how things should be. So if I see something that's unjust, I'm not just going to conform because this is how it's always been done. I'm going to actually do something about it. And this, no doubt, must have inspired Dr. Martin Luther King, because in his sermon from November of 1954, he had a sermon called The Transformed Nonconformist. The Transformed Nonconformist. And this is what he had to say. I love this. I love this. He says, I'm sure that many of you have had the experience of dealing with thermometers and thermostats. The thermometer merely records the temperature. If it is 70 or 80 degrees, it registers that, and that is all. On the other hand, the thermostat changes the temperature. If it is too cool in the house, you simply push the thermostat up a little, and it makes it warmer. And this is from his speech. He says, and so the Christian, because he was talking, it was a sermon in church. He says, and so the Christian is called upon not to be like a thermometer conforming to the temperature of his society, but he must be like a thermostat serving to transform the temperature of his society. Oh my God, I love this so much, especially when you look at all the insanity that's going on in the world right now. There are going to be some people that just throw up their hands and they say, this is just the way that it is, and there's nothing we can do, and we're just going to go in and we're going to conform. And then there's the thermostats that are like, no, 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 no. We're not going to do that. We are going to transform the temperature in this bullshit that I see that's happening in society right now. So instead of just being a thermometer that is passive and is simply reflecting what's going on out there, we get to be proactive. We get to respond to what's happening out there, and we get to work to make change or to improve things. Because Dr. King's sentiment is basically saying this: you can either make history or you can be made by it. And he said that we're often made by history rather than making it. But our job is to go out and to make history rather than be made by it. So another way of saying this is like this. I hope you're picking up what I'm putting down, because I think right now a lot of people are just feeling completely like overwhelmed, and they're just sitting there like, oh no, we're doomed. Like, this is how it is, and there's nothing we can do about it. And all we can do is reflect back the crazy that's happening and the fear that's happening right now. And it's a very passive way to be, right? And I think that we want to be the thermometers. We want to be the ones who like go in and say, hey, I'm taking the temperature of the room and I don't like what I'm seeing. I don't like what's going on. And it goes back to like me being in the hallway. Now, I could have met Frigid Jane with more frigidity. I could have just met her with coldness and meanness. And like, I could have just boom, ice cube to ice cube. But I was like, oh no, I'm going to turn up my sun. I'm going to turn up my light, right? A Course in Miracles tells us we are the light of the world. A cloud does not put out the sun. So even though I was trying to be the sun and she was trying to be a cloud, I was like, man, I'm just going to peek around the edges of this cloud. I'm just going to dial up my temperature a little bit. I am going to set the tone for this interaction. I don't have to be at the mercy of how she's behaving and how she's treating me. I don't have to respond, right, with fear or with attitude or with my ego. I could choose to respond with love. Now, A Course in Miracles tells us that everything is people are either showing us love, right? Or they're calling out for us. They're either extending love or they are crying out for help. And the only sane response to somebody who is showing you love is to show love back. But the other only sane response is when somebody's crying out for love, and people do it in a lot of different and difficult ways, is to respond with love. And that doesn't mean you become a doormat. I didn't just sit there and be like, oh, I'm just going to let this lady to be rude to me, right? But I also didn't let her change or choose how I was going to be. I got to decide how I wanted to show up. And so, your experience and attitude does not have to be at the mercy of what others outside of you are doing and saying. You get to wake up in the morning. In fact, there's a whole like exercise in A Course in Miracles that says you wake up in the morning and you get to decide the kind of day that you're going to have. You certainly get to decide the kind of person that you're going to be. You get to choose your attitude. You get to choose how you're going to speak to people, how you're going to be with people, right? You're going to get to decide, am I going to be the kind of person that wants to kind of shit on other people's parade? Or if it's raining, do I want to help them hold up an umbrella, right? Like, who am I going to be and how am I going to be in the world? And one of the really powerful and fascinating things, and I think fantastic things, is that when you start to develop a DSP, a daily spiritual practice, and whether your daily spiritual practice involves prayer or meditation or mantra or contemplation or chanting or being in Mother Nature or doing yoga or doing devotional reading or going to church or like whatever, going to synagogue, going to temple, going to whatever you're doing your rosary beads, right? Whatever it is. When you start to develop a DSP, and especially if you're doing something like the daily lessons of A Course in Miracles, or if you're doing some form of meditation, what's really powerful is what you're actually doing is mind training. You are learning to place your focus, place your attention, place your mind where you want to place it. We are choosing to be conscious and intentional. And we're choosing to pay attention to whether we are being reactive or whether we are being proactive. So to be reactive is to be a thermometer. We are simply just being at the mercy of the temperature of what's happening, and whether that's in your home, whether that's in your relationships, whether that's the people you're around at work, whether it's in the larger culture, whether it's what's happening with the government in the world, right? The society. Okay. Versus, right, being a thermostat, which says, no, I'm going to set the tone. I'm going to decide who I'm going to be, how I'm going to be, and how I'm going to respond when I encounter other people who are trying to set a tone of racism or misogyny or sexism or xenophobia or whatever. Whenever we're bumping up against people who are not trying to do the love thing, the people who are trying to do the hate and the greed thing and the racist thing and the unkind thing, the not inclusive thing. When we're bumping up against that, we don't have to be the mercy of their temperature. We get to decide to be our own personal thermostat. And it's by having practices, having spiritual practices, having support in a community of people who are trying to be the love that they actually are. They are trying to be the light of the world. They are trying to be like when I think about the Mr. Rogers and Bob Ross and the Sesame Streets, right? The places and the programs and the people that are trying to put more compassion and kindness and love and empathy and integrity into the world. So we don't have to be tossed about like, oh, now it's hot and now it's cold and oh my God, and what are we going to do? We get to say, no, this is how I'm setting my mind. This is, I am dialing my thing, right? I am dialing my thing for warmth, for inclusivity, for connectivity, for community, for creativity, for love, for kindness, for compassion, for mercy, for understanding, for deep listening, whatever the thing is. So we don't have to get tossed about. We get to decide. And if we find ourselves in a situation or in a country or in a whatever where we do not like what's going on, we don't have to just like pull the covers over our head and just bundle ourselves up and go in our own little like corner of the world. We get to say, nope, I have a choice and I'm going to be proactive, and it goes back again to what he says, we are called not to be like a thermometer conforming to the temperature of his society. We must be like a thermostat serving to transform the temperature of the society. So if you find yourself in situations where it's been a little, as I would like to say, it's been a little chilly, maybe you can turn up your thermostat and dial up a little bit more love. And also be hyper aware. Like, be really aware the vibe, the energy, the temperature that you are bringing into the relationships and the spaces that you occupy. How are you greeting people? Are you being open and welcoming and inclusive? These are important things to ponder, especially if you're somebody who has a business, especially if you're somebody who's trying to connect or maybe find a partner in life. Maybe you're looking for your sweetie and you want to, like, what are you putting out? And, it can be really easy to just feel like that. I thought this was really interesting too. I just interrupted myself because I looked down and saw this. So Dr. Crane says that the ramifications of these principles, he was looking at them in four significant realms: social behavior, politics, education, and religion. And he was basically saying, he says in politics, he pointed out that these two principles of life are dramatically revealed. Listen to this. This is so fucking powerful. He says dictatorships assume that virtually all men are thermometers, that they will change with the conditions into which they are put. While democracies, hello, let me say that again, while democracies assume that all men are political thermostats, meaning we are going to decide. We are not just going to say, like, oh, you say this is how it is, and we're just going to kind of like, because this is what happened in Nazi Germany. There were a bunch of thermometers, and we needed more thermostats. You know what I'm saying? He also went on to say that in regard to these principles, how they operate in education. And my teachers out there, listen to this. This is fascinating. He stressed the points that thermometric education, so, is counterfeit. It emphasizes indoctrination and regimentation. While thermostatic, meaning being thermostat education, seeks to develop insight, discrimination, and critical judgment. Oh my God, this is so friggin' good. And he says, finally, in regards to religion, he pointed out that all the highest expressions of the thermostatic religion is called Christianity. He says, the thermostat, which makes, he says, quite contrary declarations and demands. What cannot be endured, he said, must be cured. I hear so much of Martin Luther King Jr. in this as well, right? What cannot be endured must be cured. And this is like, to endure something is to be the thermometer. To cure it is to be the thermostat. So we have an opportunity to get really real with ourselves and to check in and to ask who and how we have been being. Again, to yourself. Are you just being tossed about by your mood or your circumstances or what's happening, or somebody wasn't being nice to you, or you didn't get your way, or your sweetie didn't give you enough attention, or like whatever? Are we going to let ourselves just be tossed about by what's happening in the external? Are we going to be at the effect of what we think the cause is, which is out there? Or are we going to be causal? Are we going to be thermostats? Are we going to set the temperature and the tone and say, I am the captain of my own ship. I'm going to decide how I'm going to be. I'm going to be proactive instead of reactive. And I am going to get to decide exactly who I am, despite what somebody out there might be trying to do to me, despite what somebody on social media might be trying to say to me. We do not have to be at the mercy of that. And this is why having a DSP, a daily spiritual practice, having a spiritual mentor, hello, raising my hand, open for business, or being a part of a community, whether that's, again, your yoga class, your church, or something like the Nest, my spiritual mentoring group program, right? So if you want to find out more about how I help people with this, becoming more thermostats than thermometers, you can always go to KarenKenney.com, check out all that stuff. Of course, you can always keep listening to the podcast. I hope you found this episode helpful. And I also understand that there might have been times in your life when you have been more thermometer than thermostat. And I think that one of the good things about being a thermometer sometimes in small doses. Although let me put it this way. I take that back. Let me, because I just realized. So my thermostat downstairs in my house, it will not only tell me the temperature of the room, I can also have the power to set the temperature of the room. So it's helpful to be able to read the temperature as well. That's the one thermometer thing that's good, is you can walk into a space and you can kind of suss out what's happening in that room. You can feel the vibe, you can feel the energy, you can feel the temperature. You can be sensitive enough to understand what's happening, what has been happening. And we don't have to form to it though. We can decide, like, yeah, I don't like what's going down here. I don't like what they're trying to do. I'm not going to put up with that. I'm not going to let you tell that racist joke. I'm not going to let you treat my friend that way. I'm going to get between you physically and that other person because what you're trying to do is wrong, right? We get to be the thermostats. But it's helpful to be a thermostat that can also take the temperature of the room and to know what's going on around them. So I hope this has been helpful in some way. I'd love to hear from you. I always love to hear from you guys. And thank you to those of you who responded to my my Care Bear episode. That was really fun, hearing from some of you about like what your belly badges were and what your Care Bears. So please, if you listen to the show, just take 30 seconds, take a minute out of your day. Let me know if you listened, if you liked it, what your favorite part was, if something stood out, or certainly reflect back to me your own awarenesses, your own ahas, your own insights, because I love hearing from you guys. Okay, wherever you go, may you leave the people, the animals, the environment, the place, the planet, and yourself better than how you previously found it. Wherever you go, may you and your energy and your just your vibe and your kindness and your love and you being the thermostat be a blessing. Bye.